Before we get started today, I'd like to share another rating and review from Apple Podcasts. If you haven't already, make sure you stop by at Apple Podcasts and subscribe, leave me a rating, and leave me a review, and your review could be featured on a future episode of the Weekly Leadership Experience. Today's review comes from RGHF61 for 5 stars. Great content. This is really good stuff. The episodes are 10 to 15 minutes, so you could even listen on the way to work. Great direction and insight into leadership and being the best leader you can be. Thank you so much for this great review. I really appreciate it. And now, on with the show. Welcome to the Weekly Leadership Experience, a place for leaders to get inspired, be challenged, and grow. I am your host, Rashad Oberlander. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Weekly Leadership Experience. I'm here today with James Keirstead, President and CEO of Levven Electronics. James is a serial entrepreneur, having been a part of several companies, and is also very active in volunteering his time to the entrepreneurs organization, the A100 and Alberta Women Entrepreneurs. James and his companies have won numerous awards, including being named to Canada's 50 Best Managed Companies in 2005 to 2008, Ernst Young Entrepreneur of the Year for Manufacturing in the Prairies, and the Ernest C Manning Innovation Award. James, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Rashad. Thanks for having me.
No problem. I'm excited to have you here.
Yeah.
So it's been a little bit since we talked last, but we met a couple of years ago. I reached out to you via LinkedIn, and we had a great conversation then. And I'm excited to be able to share with the listeners some of what we talked about then and maybe a few other things. How have you been?
Yeah, I've been good. It's been an interesting time for entrepreneurs globally and for all of us, in fact. With COVID has created this new dynamic that has people thinking so differently than before. And that has been, in some cases, very beneficial for some of the businesses that I've seen, and in other cases, absolutely devastating. So, but most of all, very difficult to plan for. And
Absolutely.
I'm a planner, so.
Yeah. And you've been an entrepreneur for quite a long time. I think you'll tell us a little about your story there, but this is unlike anything really you've experienced in your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the closest thing I'd experienced would be back in 2008. My former company, Blue Falls Manufacturing, which makes Arctic spas, we're a luxury product, and in 08, the world changed with the financial crisis that hit. But even that, it was absolutely devastating. And I thought that COVID in the spa business was going to be equally as devastating. And in fact, it has had the exact opposite impact that I originally thought it would have. That business and my ex-partners there are doing incredibly well. If you, in fact, any customer wanted to go buy a hot tub right now, they would get one at Christmas. It's unlike anything I have ever seen in all my years. People are just saying, hey, I guess I'm not going on vacation. I guess I better make my home more comfortable. So I bet that places like Home Depot are doing better as well, just because people are saying, I'll nest, I'll make my space better.
Yeah.
So they're definitely benefiting from this new insular mentality that is, crossing the globe right now.
Certainly. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about your background, James, and what inspired your entrepreneurial journey so far?
Yeah, well, I guess I'm kind of a classic story of how a young kid becomes an entrepreneur. I'm a twin, and I have a sister that is only 11 months younger than me. So we're from a single parent family. My mother raised the three of us, and we were poor all of our lives. Maybe not poor by some country standards, but by Canadian standards, we were very poor. And I just remember growing up and suffering all that comes along with being, very poor, not knowing, when we would be getting new clothes, or, having to take less meals, or um, just getting picked on even at school because, kids knew that you were, you didn't have as much.
Mm-hmm.
And that really stuck with me when I was young. And I learned at a very young age that I could make money. I could go out and I could work hard and I could make money and I could change that for myself. And so from as early as 9 years old, I started my first paper route, and it just sort of progressed from there. By the time I was 12, I had 3 different paper routes running, and I had conscripted my brother into helping me, and I had quite a little enterprise going. And the two of us just, loved kind of controlling our own destiny and having
Mm-hmm.
this sort of vision that we could use hard work um, and our own ingenuity to bring us out of poverty. And we went from, and I did work for some other companies, but most
Mm-hmm.
of the time it was about learning about how to be better at what I really wanted to do, which
Mm-hmm.
was, be an entrepreneur. And even the jobs that I took were pretty entrepreneurial in a lot of ways. If we take a look at, I worked all through hotels and restaurants and that, which,
Mm-hmm.
as servers and bartenders and that, you are pretty entrepreneurial. You can serve your customers better and get better tips, which,
Mm-hmm.
I learned very quickly. And then I guess I had my first real entrepreneurial business in college. I started a college pro painting franchise, and
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to be able to tell you, Rashad, that I did amazing at it. But the truth is I sold a lot of paint jobs here in Edmonton, and struggled on all the other sides of it, the delivery of it, the managing of the people, the hiring the right number of people. It I think I worked the whole summer and barely made any money at all.
Mm-hmm.
And my roommate at the time, who helped me finish a lot of the paint jobs that I couldn't finish because my staff didn't show up, uh, he was pretty happy to see that summer end. But I was hooked on that. I was hooked on, hey, we can develop something that the market wants or people want, and I can figure out those other things. I just got to go learn them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I've been an entrepreneur pretty much ever since, in some business or other.
Certainly. And I think that there's a number of sort of classic entrepreneurial conundrums in your story. I think we've all probably read many a story about entrepreneurs starting something out of their garage or sort of out of a necessity or need, and figuring out those other details later on, and,
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes struggling with those finer details. Entrepreneurs often are very sort of visionary and vision focused, and those hard skills, so if we call them that, would be sometimes take time to develop.
Yeah, I joked around today. I was on a call with Rainforest Lunch Without Lunch,
Mm-hmm.
sharing the Levven story and everything, and they asked me, how would you describe your entrepreneurial journey? And I said, well, I'm kind of like a Roomba. I bang up against the walls enough times, I'm going to clean the whole carpet, but I didn't really know how I got there, and I might not go exactly the same way the next time.
Sure, that's a great analogy. I love that.
I hope I'm a little better now. I have learned a lot, and I think I'm a little better at pointing in the right direction
Sure.
than I was when I was younger. But that's the beauty of youth, right? We have
Mm-hmm.
that exuberance, that drive, that enthusiasm that compensates for our lack of experience and wisdom. And
Mm-hmm.
I sure had that in spades.
Mm-hmm.
Not the wisdom, the exuberance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Certainly. I think in an article I had read that you did with, I believe it was the A100, you mentioned a little bit about that, sort of the youthful energy and exuberance versus sort of the time-tested ability to evaluate a little bit more coherently. What do you think is the balance in those two kind of extremes?
Yeah, it's really hard. The other trade-off that you have as you get older is those old fears that you had when you were young start to creep in again. They can start to impact your actions, and that's where that youthful exuberance can really overcome those fears. So I'll give you an example. When we started Arctic Spas, we decided we're going to go to Europe and we're going to start selling hot tubs in Europe. So I went over to Europe with 15 grand cash in my pocket, and we had 4 containers of hot tubs on the water, and I showed up in the United Kingdom, and I'm going to set up a warehouse. And my older self, looking back at that, is going, "Well, that's crazy. You didn't do any research on the market. You didn't find out if they're interested in hot tubs. You didn't find out how to lease a building," because it turned out, by the way, that I had to convince a farmer to store our containers of spas for like 4 months because no one would lease me a space. But that warehouse got set up in 1999, and that warehouse is still there. And it was what springboarded Arctic Spas into Europe. And so I look at myself now, and I have all this experience and wisdom that tells me to ask all these important questions. But on the other side of the coin, there's also this underlying fear that I have from when I was a child of having nothing, that I might make a mistake and lose everything that I've worked for. And I don't mean it to, but I do think sometimes it throttles my vision. That, if I could say it a better, I can't really say it in a better way, but I dream big, but sometimes I don't step into it quite as big as I used to.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
Yep. I know. I get what you're saying. So with that, I think it's an important thing to, it's the juxtaposition. It's what the young people need in their younger days, and it's what you need as you get older. You sort of need a little bit of what you had at each end, So I guess to your younger self and to the younger people who are listening, and what is the important thing to focus on with all the energy and exuberance that you have when you're young, and the drive and determination, and how what is the thing that you need that you'll learn later on, but what can we take away right now?
I would say the number one thing is, don't be afraid to go out and conquer the world. If you believe you can do it, you absolutely can. Like, I cannot describe enough times how I went and did something with no experience, no research, no market analysis, and nothing. I just jumped into it. Another example, I worked in a hot tub company before Arctic Spas. I owned my own hot tub store, and it was struggling in Richmond, British Columbia. And I met our landlord was a Chinese businessman, and invited me over to China to go experience China and learn China, and consider setting up a factory in China to make spas and whirlpool baths. And I went over, and I was blown away, because this was in 1995. So Hong Kong hadn't even been handed back to China at the time. Yeah. And going into the mainland of China was like stepping into a different world. I mean, it was so much less developed than it is today. And you really noticed that you were a foreigner, because there just was so few of us around at that time. And I was so excited by the opportunities that I saw there, that my brother stayed in Canada and ran the business there. We took money again. I took 10 grand in cash, and I flew over to Hong Kong, and I started selling Canadian, we had worked out a bunch of agreements with some Canadian and American manufacturers.
Mm-hmm.
And I literally built a catalog on a inkjet printer. And I walked the streets of Hong Kong trying to figure out where the building materials district was. And I sold, stainless steel kitchen sinks, hardwood flooring, pool equipment, spas. It was just crazy that I would even think to try and go do that. And we managed to do pretty good in our first year. Then things kind of went sideways, but if it wasn't for some of those experiences there, I might not have ended up in Blue Falls and had the success that we had in that business, because my partners from Blue Falls, who I met in the hot tub industry working for another company, they called me up after my business unfortunately failed. They called me up and they said, listen, we've got this small little hot tub manufacturer and we want to take it global, and we see that you've been trotting all over the place. Maybe you could help us, come and join us and help us do that. And that really changed my entrepreneurial trajectory. Would not have happened without me just taking action. And I think a lot of times we get stuck and we say, well, I need to know more about this and I need to know more about that before I go. And one of my favorite business coaches that I've had in my life, a guy named Michael Walsh, said to me, what you know is nice, but it's what you do that counts. And I'd say that's the message that I would give to my younger self. Go do it. Yeah, you're going to make mistakes, but so what? Action is what drives, which is what accelerates our life and our career, right?
Absolutely.
It's where the rubber hits the road.
Absolutely. I love that answer. And I guess on the flip side of the coin, what then do you say to people who are getting into their later years, perhaps, and what is the message that you would say to them in light of sort of that take action as a young person message?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I would say, it isn't a lot different. Yes, protect your nest egg or what have you, because, as we get older, we want to make sure we're going to be okay. But I think you still have to have that mentality of, hey, dream big. We can make a difference in the world. And if we focus on it very, very precisely, it doesn't matter how old we are. We just have to be more careful about how focused we are as we get older, because we don't have the same level of energy. So, we tend to have to be more precise in how we decide things. We need to do more research, and we need to be more, particular and pointed in how we move our energy. But still, it's that dreaming big that has always kept me moving towards that next thing. I still today, even though my business isn't as nearly as successful as Arctic Spas has become in all its years, today, I still believe that the business I'm working on, what we're working on in Levven today, will change the way homes are built, buildings are built, how we wire everything is going to change because of what we're doing. I still believe that. And that's what gets me up and gets me going and keeps me pointed in the right direction and fighting all the battles, as you know, Rashad, that I've had to fight to bring this technology to market. Absolutely.
And it's a good segue, I think, into the next thing that I'd like to talk with you about. Very quickly, could you just tell us sort of the flagship product for Levven right now?
Yeah, so our flagship product would be a wireless control system. So basically, we figured out how to separate the electrical break from the switch that you interact with on the wall. And what that allows us to do is move the load or the power controller as close to the load that you're running as possible and eliminate all the wiring in between.
Mm-hmm.
And that labor and materials offsets the cost of the technology.
Mm-hmm.
And then we figured out how to connect them all together, bring them up onto a back-end website and connect through an app so that you could program them any way you want to operate your house.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been gaining quite a bit of traction with home builders. We focus, again, I was telling you earlier about focus. We focus solely on that residential new construction, although we're starting to get some business in multifamily now, and we do have some retailers that carry our product. Our main focus is dead on those large production home builders.
Right.
And that has allowed us to be very pointed with our strategy. And that's why I think we're gaining traction.
Absolutely. And I read somewhere there's a number in sort of feet or weight. I don't remember which, but there's an amount of wire you would save by using your wireless switch controls. What is that number?
So you'd save, depending on the house, you'd save anywhere from 600 to 1,200 feet of wire per home.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
and I think massive. A good concern given environmental concerns and things out there as well.
Well, to give you an idea, just a quick mental picture, if all the houses that are built in North America each year, just the houses, were to move to a product like this, they would have save enough wire to circumvent the globe 7.5 times.
Wow.
So it's not insignificant. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. Well, congratulations on that product. We had talked kind of pre-show a little bit about the challenges that you've had to face bringing this product to market and sort of not only into building codes, but getting it in front of retailers and home builders. Can you expand on that a little bit and tell us what is it taken to overcome those challenges and keep pushing ahead and actually getting it into those arenas?
Sure. First, I'll start with the challenges. There have been several challenges. I'd say the largest challenge that really surprised us was electrical code. The North American Electrical Code and the Canadian Electrical Code actually don't define a wall switch. And because it wasn't defined in the code, when we brought on a wireless wall-mounted control switch, many of the jurisdictions right across North America said, well, no, that's not a wall switch, because a wall switch needs a wire that runs up into the box where the wall switch is supposed to be, and it has to be stapled every 16 centimeters down the stud, and all these rules, right? And you're like, yeah, but it's battery powered. There's no wire. You don't need any of that. So it's not acceptable. That battle started in 2015. We developed a product, and honest to goodness, we had no idea that we would run into a code problem like this. We actually thought, wow, we're taking wire out of the walls. We're going to make homes safer, because there's going to be less high voltage wiring in the walls. It's going to be easy. Not so. After 3 years of lobbying in Canada and 5 years in the US. In Canada, we were able to get the Alberta government in 2018 to issue a stand data. But the Canadian government still has not okayed wire-free wall-mounted controls across the country. We expect that to happen in 2021. And we were able to put a proposal in front of the NEC that finally got accepted. So the 2020 National Electrical Code in the United States will now accept a wireless wall-mounted control in replacement of a regular wall switch. So, that in itself has been a huge win for a company of our size. And again, just speaks to you have to be able to persevere and find where you get help when you are out of your element. We had to actually get lobbying help in Alberta because all we were doing is upsetting the code body
Right.
because we just didn't know how to interact with them.
Mm-hmm.
The other challenge that we faced, obviously, is the technical challenges. Everyone hears, oh, it's a wireless switch. We hear about them all the time. They think it's simple. Well, when you put a few wireless switches into a house, yeah, okay, it's not too difficult. When you put 60, 70, 80, 90 devices into a house that are all connected wirelessly, that technical challenge is actually much, much greater than we anticipated it would be. And we've solved it, but it makes that really simple invention seem or so much more challenging than it actually seems. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that just took some great engineering from our engineering team and some great partnerships that were willing to support us while we figured it out. And then I'd say the third thing is the third big challenge is overcoming status quo in the building industry. Where the wireless or the light switch that you use today, the basic design was patented in 1917. Wow. So we've been using that design for over 100 years. And we're talking about an industry that doesn't like change, and they don't trust trying new things. And in many cases, some of the new things they've tried just haven't lived up to their expectations. I'm sure there's plenty of your listeners here that would say, yeah, I tried wireless switches and they didn't work. I couldn't get them connected to my gateway and my phone, and it was too complicated. I ended up replacing them with regular switches. Common story we'd hear. So convincing, builders that this was where the market was going to move, that eventually it would take over from regular wired switches. It had to, because we are in a situation where economically you get a plus. You get a situation where you remove that extra cost layer and you get this new technology. So whether it's us or someone else, there's no question in my mind the wave has started. The genie's out of the bottle, and it isn't going back in. In a decade from now, builders won't wire switches in walls. It doesn't make sense. It's a waste of labor. It's a waste of materials. It slows down their build cycle, and it costs them more money. So those were the big challenges. How did we overcome them? Well, we overcame some of those challenges. There were a few different tactics used. When it came to the retailers, it was straight tenacity. To get into Lowe's, I called Lowe's for 14 months straight before anyone would return my call. 14 months of just getting nowhere. And even after those 14 months, it took us another year to finally get an agreement to go into Lowe's. And I thought, oh, we've hit it, a big company like Lowe's carrying our product, it's going to go great. Well, I learned a lot about mass merchant retail, and let's just say it wasn't what I expected it to be.
Right.
They didn't fly off the shelves like I thought they would.
Right.
But on the other side, where we really focused on the customer, we really dug into what was the builder needing, what were their pain points, and what were they trying to provide to their customer, and what were the big challenges and the big objectives that they were trying to get to. And we spent years asking questions of them, testing out our theories, actually building calculators to figure out how much a switch costs them to install, because nobody could tell us. No one, not the electrical contractors, because that's not how they bid work. They bid the whole house, not just the switch. And they didn't really want to share the numbers with us either.
Right.
So we finally convinced, a few electrical contractors and a few builders to start sharing information. And what we found was really compelling for them. The more we dug into it, the more we found that the value proposition for them was even stronger than we thought. They could actually install our product and put money to their bottom line.
Mm.
Unheard of with new technology.
Right.
So that's been really amazing. And it's that I have to give my business partner Marv special credit on this. He is doggedly determined to find out when he talks to a customer and they throw back or they're not getting what we're saying. He starts asking the question right away. Why aren't they understanding what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Not it's something wrong with them. They just don't get us. He comes at it from the perspective of, hey, we're not saying this the right way. We're not describing it the right way. We're not showing it the right way for them to understand. And we would just continue to go back and reiterate and iterate and iterate until now. When we sit down with a builder and we go through the presentation, it's very little about the product and so much more about their business objectives and how we can help them achieve those.
Cool. And I mean, I think there's a lot in there. And I mean, I think a couple of the important things to pull out of that in terms of overcoming challenges are the tenacity and the willingness to kind of look at what you're doing and overcome, realizing that maybe what you have isn't exactly what the customer needs, and ask those questions.
Yeah, at the end of the day, nobody cares about what our product does. Nobody cares about Levven or Levven controls. They care about the solution to the problem they have.
Right.
And if you can help them with that, then they're going to be on. Then they're really going to get excited.
So, changing gears a little bit, I'd like to ask you, how has being a leader changed for you over the years?
So when I was young, I would go and just kind of expected everyone to follow. Not everyone. I would just charge right in and hope that people followed.
Right.
Now I would say I'm a little different in that I'm like, here's what I think is possible. If you think that this is possible and you want to be a part of that, hey, why don't you people come with us? And I've encouraged that amongst my team. I've always been a big believer of maybe it's because I grew up poor, that everyone in my business is absolutely paramount, from the person on the production floor, who I have so much respect for, the people who actually manufacture our devices. It is not an easy job. And I have such amazing people. They come in every day and I feel blessed that they trust me. And I would say that's probably the biggest difference. I realize today my shortcomings better than I did when I was young. I've learned to find great people that fill those gaps for me. Marv, my business partner, Jim Qualley, who heads up my engineering, Nimal Rodrigo, who is my CFO, Nabil Falla, who runs our manufacturing. Each one of those guys, we brought in, they bought shares in the company. They're invested. They are part of the team. And without them, Levven is not the same. Me on my own, this doesn't look like it does today. Me with that great team, man, it looks really exciting. Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest difference. I thought I could do anything when I was younger, and now I'm really clear on what I'm great at. And I'm also really clear about what I'm not good at, and I'm not afraid to say it. I'm not afraid to say, if you want sales and marketing, you want to talk to my partner Marv. He's forgotten more than I'll ever know about it, and I absolutely trust him to handle that. Same goes with manufacturing. I bought Rashad. I bought the electronics business. I didn't know how to build electronics. I didn't know what any of the machines did. I didn't know any of that. I completely trusted Nabil and Jim to make that a reality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are great, and I think that it's incredibly important, as you say, to recognize what you're good at and what you're not good at, and surround yourself with the right people. So I love that answer. Appreciate that.
I'd say now that I think of it, one other part that's been really of value to me that I didn't realize when I was younger is really understanding what values are core to me and what values in turn become core to Levven, and making sure that when we hire people, we're making sure those people get our core values and that those core values resonate with them. Because the reality is, Rashad, I am who I am. I'm 52 years old. I am not going to change. In fact, I'm pretty certain I am going to become more like who I am than I was.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? I'm just going to get more like that.
Yeah.
So I'd be a fool to go and try and pretend to be something different and come up with frivolous or those core values, aspirational core values that some organizations have. We kept it really simple, and our values really resonate with me, and they're so simple that they can resonate with all my people as well.
Could you give us an example of a couple of those values?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Do what you say you're going to do. We go together. Take action. Well, you've heard I'm a pretty big guy on taking action, right?
Absolutely.
And the last one is ingenuity. Sorry, I'm blanking all of a sudden. I'll get back to it.
That's all right. Those are great values, and I think that I'd sort of tie a few things together here that we've been talking about in terms of the number of awards that you yourself, your partners, and your companies have received over the years. I think there's quite a number of things there that drive the success and innovation consistently to receive that kind of recognition. Would you agree? And is there anything that you would add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go back to Arctic Spas days, because a lot of people would look at a hot tub company and not really think of it as very innovative. But that's actually how we became such a dominant player in that industry. Is we were really innovative. We were designing new jet styles, not just styles, but functions. When everyone else was doing the same old, we were the first guys to connect hot tubs to the internet and allow you to actually use turn your hot tub on and off from your phone and be able to see what the temperature was. We're the first guys to develop automated water management for hot tubs. It was ingrained into who we were that, we would just continue to innovate. And if we did that, we would make better products and customers would come to those products. And I'd say very much we have the same sort of mindset at Levven. Look, we're going to continue to drive at making our products better and more user friendly and simpler and easier to install and, more reliable than they were the day before.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. So as we kind of wrap up our conversation today, the last couple of questions for you. What is one thing that you know about life or leadership that you wish everyone knew?
People don't follow people that don't have a really clear vision about where they're going. And it has to be somewhere where they want to go too. And I'd say the next thing is we're servants to the team. As leaders, we're servants to the team. I think Simon Sinek said it best, when, leaders eat last. And I've always tried to live that in my businesses. and maybe it's because of my upbringing,
Mm-hmm.
but I absolutely think that is paramount. People, they don't, for over the long term,
Mm-hmm.
they follow leaders that, don't just have these massive egos and everything. They follow people that have a great vision that they believe in, and they want to come along and help.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And for the tough question, when it's all said and done, what 3 words do you want to be used to describe your life?
Reliable, honorable, vision.
Those are great words. Love those words. It's a very on the spot question, but I think sometimes what comes to mind first is probably the most true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very cool.
Thank you.
James, it has been an absolute pleasure to be speaking with you today. I've taken a lot away myself. I know the listeners are going to love this and get a lot out of it as well. Is there anywhere that you'd like the listeners to check out what you're doing, or maybe a cause that's close to your heart that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I believe that all boats rise with the rising tide, and I believe that when we have success, we need to look around and lift those up around us. I have been a huge supporter of the Rainforest Alberta initiative, which is trying to drive the innovation ecosystem in our province. I think it's absolutely imperative that we innovate and diversify our economy so that more Albertans and Canadians can work. And I believe that we can compete globally. And so if people want to go check out Rainforest, yeg.ca or rainforestab.ca,
Mm-hmm.
that would be awesome. And you can always check out Levven products anywhere you like as well.
Certainly. What's the best website for Levven?
Levven, which is spelled LEVVEN.com.
Perfect. Excellent. James, thank you so much for joining me today. I look forward to watching the continued success of your company. It's been a real pleasure. I look forward to speaking with you again soon.
It's been fantastic, Rashad. Thank you for having me, my friend.
Thank you.
Take care.
If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, would you head over to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe, leave me a rating, leave me a review, and share this with a friend. It spreads the word and helps the podcast grow. You can also find me on social media at RE Oberlander. Until next time, stay awesome.